Hello, America. Hey, it's Big Lou here. Don't you just love this social media thing? I mean, it's like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. I mean, Facebook. I can't even imagine what I would have thought about Facebook when I was a kid. But it's kind of a dream come true because when I was a kid, I really wanted to be, or at least have the privileges of being an old guy. And now, lo and behold, here I am. I'm an old guy, right? So, well, why did I want to be an old guy? That's simple. Because when you're an old guy, you get to say anything you want and pretty much get to do what you want. Nobody really gives you a real big problem over it. Maybe a grandmother might argue with you a little bit, but other than that, you know, it was always my dream to be able to get in a car with the top down, light up a cigar, pull out, drive down the road 20 miles an hour with my left hand signal on and turn right. I mean, it's always been, that was on my bucket list. And now here I am, I'm doing that all the time. So it's pretty cool. But, the thing about this social media thing is that sometimes certain people just don't know how to use it right. You know what I mean? So we end up having discussions that don't turn into discussions at all. It's just a bunch of people hollering at each other. Well, I grew up with that. We'd go on the corner. One guy would say one thing, and then before you know it, everybody's hollering at each other. Usually ended in somebody rolling around on the ground or somebody getting a fat lip or a black eye. But we got over it. That's kind of difficult to do on Facebook. And unfortunately, what happens is this yelling and screaming turns into something that's a lot more difficult to solve than rolling around on the ground for a couple minutes. So I started to think about how do we deal with this? Well, first of all, I kind of equate this particular challenge with the fact that some people just don't know how to use tools right. So I was in the construction business for some 40 years. I mean, I know all about that. You give somebody a circular saw that never used it before, and even the most intelligent guys look really stupid. Uh, it was really really very difficult for me to teach guys with master's degree in fine arts how to operate a bulldozer or an excavator. I mean, those were difficult things. You had, just because they were smart guys didn't mean they were going to be able to handle operating the tools and equipment the way other more skilled people. Well, the same thing goes for social media. Some people just haven't learned how to use the tools yet. So you may find that if you take a little different perspective on things, that you can use these tools to help get your points across. This all started out of a little Facebook discussion I had with a friend of mine who has very different political views than I do, but I know that Joe is a good person. He's fundamentally a good person. And he and I may disagree on some things, but on the important things, I think we pretty much agree on just about everything. On the other hand, we have different ways of saying the same thing. Now, I'm going to focus on one particular aspect because Joe and I finally got to the point where I think we pretty much agree on how we like to live our life. But Joe made a point of saying that he was very concerned about the environment and thought that perhaps because of my political views, I didn't have the same uh, level of importance or place that at the same priority that he did. And he feels that all too often people call issues regarding the environment a hoax. Well, first of all, I don't even like the word hoax because we could be in the midst of a hoax with our whole life here. We don't even know the reasons why we're here, quite frankly. There's a lot of people who think they do and profess that every day. I'm not quite sure that I do, but I know that there's even a possibility that my very existence is a hoax. So let's not even go there. But let's talk about the environment. So here we go, Joe. Number one, I don't think that anybody in the world who's truthful with themselves would say that they don't like clean air or clean water. Now, let me get this straight with you. I want to make this point very, very clear. I love and am very grateful for clean water and clean air. And I think if you know me, that if I'm any kind of a phobe, I'm a germaphobe. I don't like to touch, look at, or even get anywhere near things like viruses and germs and all the rest of that dirty stuff. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Okay, so there we are. So you and I agree. We both find that clean air and clean water is a priority for us. Now, without discussing any of the science behind what gives us clean water and clean air, remember that we both want the same thing. Okay. Now, generally, in our country, we do a pretty good job of protecting that. And some people might say we don't do quite as good a job as we should. And I would agree with that. We probably don't. However, you're not the boss of me. I'm not the boss of you. We're not the boss of each other. And so, therefore, it's really difficult to determine who's doing what wrong and so on. All right. Now, let's get to a more um, global or social approach. We do know that there are other countries in the world that don't do anywhere nearly as good a job with controlling clean water and clean air, which essentially means your environment. Now, unfortunately, we're not in charge of them either. They are in charge of themselves, and their people, supposedly, some of their people, perhaps, are in charge of what they do and what their policies are, and so on and so forth. Now, herein lies the problem. There are just certain people in the world who think that they can force other people to do things just by saying shit. Well, that doesn't happen. You can get people to do what you want them to do, but you have to have pretty compelling reasons to do that. You just can't say it. So, we have to determine what it is that's going to put us there. I don't know what that is. That I think we're going to save for another discussion, but let's just agree on one thing. You and I, and probably damn near 6 billion people, agree with one thing and one thing only. We all want clean air. We all want clean water. Now, we can point the finger at all the other people who don't want it, but I don't think you're going to be able to find too many of them. That's why we make all this stuff up. So, as a result, this is going to work in pretty well with my next project, my next book, which is Big Blue's Old Guy Storybook. And the first title will be Shootin' the Breeze. So, what we're going to try to do is figure out a better way to shoot the breeze, and perhaps we can find some answers to that. Meanwhile, do one favor for me, will you? Buy the one book that is out right now, Big Lou's Old Guy Cookbook, My Search for the Flavor. It's available on Amazon now. So get out there, buy the book, and look for the next one that's coming up, Shootin' the Breeze. Toodaloo.